Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. Hello, Podderoonies. We are back for 2022. I know you've missed us dearly and desperate for our podcast in our ears.
Yeah, you thought you could get rid of us. No such luck. Back here with a vengeance.
We are indeed. Just a few announcements to say before we get started. We are going down to every 2 weeks now for each episode, still coming out on Saturdays, but just every 2 weeks. I know it's sad, but it just got a lot for me in particular.
Yeah, for you in particular. I hardly had to do anything. I just wake up and
Boaz just turns up, says his stuff.
Yeah, I do even half-assed. I'm not even prepared. I've barely watched the films, whatever. We just get... You've got to do so much, man, and work.
And the other thing, we're going to start off with a new table. So on our Instagram on Tuesdays, it'll be a new table. So we're keeping the 2021 one separate. So it'd be kind of cool to have a new table for 2022. Right, that's the only real things to announce for this year. And also, I said at the end of the last episode that we did on the 18th of December, when you heard it, that we might do an episode related to Scream or Scream 5. But every time I mention Scream 5 to Boaz, he's like, oh, for God's sake, why do they have to call it Scream? It's called Scream 5!
Yeah.
So
No, I hate that. Actually, to be honest, can we do a thing based on that? But this is going to be niche, but sequels which don't have a subtitle or number. Because we could do a few, and I could
confuse everyone.
Yeah, confuse the hell out of people. There's Rocky Balboa, for example, or just Balboa, you know? Or actually, a lot of the Sylvester Stallone ones, he just fucking does that, doesn't he? It's really annoying.
Yeah.
And Balboa and just Rambo, isn't it? Is the number 5. Could do that.
Yeah, maybe. And we kind of done slasher films already. So.
Yeah, I know, but I am thoroughly annoyed when movies do that. You have a sequel that doesn't, that has got the same name as the first one. Like, I could keep going on. I'm going to ruin this podcast with it, with this huge rant.
Boaz is going to come after you.
Yeah, I'll kill you, man.
Keep making 5th quels, 6th quels, just saying the original title.
Was it, Fast and the Furious? And then is it the 4th one is The Fast and the Furious? It's like, what the hell? Yeah. It's so confusing. I hate this. I hate it.
I mean, the new one is just called F9, like on a keyboard. I'm like, what?
Because I think they accidentally pressed the F9 key, and they were like, instead of the actual fucking title.
Oh, that'll do.
Yeah, that'll do. Oh god. Oh wow. Actually, it works.
We don't need extra words other than
yeah. The next one is just going to be F. And then, I mean, the way it's stupidly getting with those films, they could just call it FU. Because they have no they have no respect for the people watching the film. Anyway, sorry about my rant over like movie titles, but they
podcast derailed already.
Yeah, they drive me crazy.
Let's pull her back in.
Yeah, just let me rant another hour, and then we can get back to it. But anyway, now let's carry on.
Yeah, let's rant for another hour for the intro, then get into the podcast.
Yeah.
So we're not going to do a podcast related to Scream 5. I know it's a very popular film. I'm not that into the Scream films anyway. I love Scream 1, that's great, but the others are a bit meh for me. So we decided to go with Licorice Pizza, which of course is directed by the great Paul Thomas Anderson, a legendary director, PTA. I do love his films, so we decided to go for that one instead. And as always, you've heard him already, but we have our very own milkshake straw maker, the size of oil derricks. That was so bad.
That's terrible.
Boaz Dix, how are you, sir?
Did you just call me fat? Is that an underhanded way to say
No?
I'm as big as an old Derek? Jesus Christ.
No, the size of the straw. Oh,
Oh,
God,
okay. Right, whatever. I'll take that as a compliment, I think. Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, no, I'm good, yeah.
Right, should we go with my choice first then?
Yep.
For Paul Thomas Anderson films, I went with Phantom Thread. I really love this film. I think it's really beautiful.
Is that Phantom Thread or Phantom Thread?
Phantom Thread.
Yeah, you said.
Did I not say
you
it
said
right?
Phantom.
Okay.
Phantom.
All right.
No.
Phantom.
Yeah.
No purple people in this one with Billy Zane in there.
Oh no, that sucks.
Yeah,
I think I watched the wrong film then. Oh shit.
Yeah, Billy Zane as the Phantom making dresses.
Yeah.
That's a film I would love to
That
watch.
would be amazing. That would be incredible.
Yeah, because you picked There Will Be Blood first, and I love that film as well. So I was probably going to pick that if you didn't pick it.
Yeah.
And it's got obviously the legendary Daniel Day-Lewis in it, and I was like, you know what? Because Daniel Day-Lewis has retired, I may as well pick the other film that PTA used Daniel Day-Lewis in. So this episode is kind of half PTA, half Daniel Day-Lewis,
yeah.
because the poor sod is retired now, so which is a real shame.
It is a
but,
real damn
it's
shame.
kind of one of those things where he's retired, left us wanting more from his work. So what happens in Phantom Thread? Well, a character called Reynolds Woodcock, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, is a renowned dressmaker in London, 1950s London, highly respected. And one of the main points in this film, and it's not a joke, is that he needs a lot of patience at breakfast. And he meets a girl called Alma, played by Vicky Krieps. Yeah, and they meet in a restaurant by the sea, and they kind of hit it off. But Alma soon realizes that the only way she can love Reynolds properly is by kind of removing or trying to get Reynolds away from this dressmaking business that he's so fond of and so dedicated to. So she finally kind of comes up with the idea of poisoning him with poisonous mushrooms so he can look after him while he's ill, and that's kind of the best way for them both to fall in love and love each other. Basically, it's kind of a great romantic film that kind of flips the Hollywoodiness on its head, kind of thing, which I really like. And also, it looks amazing as well.
Does, yeah.
So, again, shot on film. I'm a big advocate for more films to be shot on film. Yeah, love it. So, Boaz, what did you make of this one then?
Yeah, no, I thought it was amazing. Yeah, basically all you said and more really. Yeah, I thought it was shot very well. And yeah, I think it is an interesting romance film because it is essentially a romance, but it is incredibly dysfunctional. It's not really done in the conventional way.
Yeah,
and it does have a charming ending, but it really is very different from any other romance film. You're like, wow, okay, that's how they decide to deal with it. Yeah, like you said, basically their relationship. What saves it is poison. But it's kind of adorable. I don't know. There's a lot more we can say about it, but yeah, no, I did like it. I did quite like it.
So directing then for Phantom Thread, the opening scenes are very simple, just establishing this world of dressmaking in the 1950s in London. The breakfast table scene is really interesting, where Daniel Day-Lewis's character Reynolds Woodcock gets slightly annoyed by her current lover, and she says, where have you gone, Reynolds? What you normally would have is a reaction shot of Reynolds first, but not PTA. The reaction is on Leslie Manville's character Cyril, Reynolds' sister, in close-up. The fact that we cut to a different character in close-up means that this small situation could get quite serious or potentially very serious in the future. Certainly breakfast scenes are very important in this film, so I quite like that. I quite like the simple wide shot when towards the end when Cyril and Alma are tending to Reynolds. The first time he gets really ill in bed, and when Cyril leaves and asks Alma to come with her, Alma just shuts the door on her, and it's a really nice composed shot in terms of blocking, and a real like symbol of power starting to shift. Then Alma has Reynolds where she wants him, to love him how she wants to, and Cyril is forced to sort the wedding dress out by herself with all the other workers. Then Cyril kind of hits back a little bit by bringing in the doctor to look at Reynolds, but then Reynolds and Alma tells him to fuck off, basically, literally to fuck off.
Yeah, that's funny.
Then Alma and Cyril literally say their lines at the same time, like Alma is really trying to force her way to the top of the tree in this house, So I kind of like, certainly in the way that both characters, Cyril and Alma, are directed in terms of the power struggle in those moments in the film.
Yeah, no, definitely. You can feel like she comes a long way, is quite, meek and pretty and stuff, into more of an authority. Yeah, going back to what you said, like at the dinner table, the first scene, where you were saying, because I actually think you get a different sense of the plot from that shot. And it happens again where, somebody asks Woodcock or something, like he's having a conversation with, a girl that he's with, whether it be Alma or the previous girl, but it always goes to her reaction, or it does that sometimes. So when you said they're talking at the dinner table, it goes to her reaction. In my thought process, I'm like, the reason when I see her, the camera go to her rather than him, even though he's the one talking and she's not really involved in this conversation, to me, it gets the feeling of, oh God, she's heard this again. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a kind of very familiar conversation his sister has heard, probably with his other lovers and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, this has happened again. And then I got that sense as well when he takes Elma to have a dress fitting, so he's like, and she just comes in and the camera's just on her as he's also talking to Elma and talking to Cyril to get the measurements, but the camera is on her and is on her pad, and you just get this feeling from the fact that it's focusing on her of like, God, this is another one. Oh God, this is again, her sort of visible, here we go again face, but the camera is on her while, Daniel Day-Lewis is with this other woman, and I thought that's kind of an effective way to frame the scene.
Yeah.
Because you get this just from those shots, just the way to do that and to focus on a different character, you get this sort of view that this isn't going to last, or this is doomed. This has probably happened again. Yeah. So that's sort of what I was getting from it.
PTA loves a long, like, push-in shot in scenes. There are loads of great push-ins in There Will Be Blood, in really important moments. There aren't that many at all in Phantom Thread. This film has a slight, like, claustrophobic quality to it, so lots of push-ins wouldn't be needed so much. But PTA comes back to his long push-in when Reynolds tells Alma he loves her and asks her to marry him. And the longer she waits to answer, you can really feel the camera coming in closer and closer and making the scene more impactful with the shot. Because it's a huge moment for Reynolds, because he's clearly states that he's destined to be a bachelor for the rest of his life, So I thought that was quite a nice way the camera just moves in closer and closer as this big moment happens. I thought that was quite clever from PTA.
Yeah, definitely.
In saving that his kind of like signature move for a really important moment when they're kind of like everywhere in There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
You got a favorite shot then, or scene?
So I've got a few shots that I quite like. There is one shot that sticks out to me as, I don't know why it sticks out so much, but I just quite like it. And it is very simple, but it is simply when he goes, before he meets Thelma, where his sister is like, you probably need to go to the country, clear your head or whatever, go somewhere. And he's like, that's a good idea. And then he goes on a drive, and just, you have this kind of long shot of him driving with his car, and just the camera sort of affixed to his car, where it's following.
Yeah, he's a dangerous driver.
He is a terrible driver. Very terrible driver. But it
really fast.
Yeah, really fast. Really all over the place.
Like, dude, slow down. You're going to get yourself killed.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just really like that scene. One, you get the look of this, environment, kind of a very rural seaside area, and it looks nice. It looks quite nice, and time appropriate vehicles and what have you. And behind his car, but I just like how it is it's like it's attached to his car, the camera, like it's following exactly. And I don't know, that shot stuck out to me. Other shots that I quite like.
Yeah.
I liked the, when we were talking about the scene where he's fitting the dress to her the first time. And I like how it quickly cuts. I like the cuts there between her writing on the paper. I know it's a simple thing, but him saying the measurements, and you see these shots of him measuring across her arm, and then quickly to her jotting it down, and then straight to him measuring another. I don't know, but that stuck to me as well. I thought that was cut like quite nice. Do you know what I mean? It just looked appealing.
Yeah. They're nice, those like extreme close-ups of her writing the numbers down. There's just something quite satisfying about that.
Yeah, there was something just very satisfying about it. I liked when she was displaying the dresses in front of the crowd that were auctioning for them. And she goes, she goes in, gets another dress put on, and then the camera,
it's kind of like one-ers,
and the camera follows her from room to room, so she can, and then background, cool. And he is not cool as a cucumber. I do like that where the camera goes through these rooms.
No, let me do it myself.
Yeah,
go away.
And he gets really pissed off. He's in the back. But I do like that. Like these long tracking shots of her going across the thing. I thought that was really nice.
My favourite shot is when Reynolds and Alma are on their honeymoon and in the Alps, and there's a shot of Reynolds like sat down looking at people walking up a mountain, and you see these amazing mountains in the background. It's just stunning to look at, probably because it's shot on film. Then the dissolving transition from that to falling snow to Reynolds and Alma walking down these glamorous steps. It's just a really nice look to the film and just a really nice, simple sequence there.
When he goes to the New Year's party eventually, I wasn't expecting that to be as large and as chaotic as it was. You get all these shots in like quiet rooms and quaint countryside. And then he goes off. He's like darting from one place to the other because she wants to go dancing for New Year, and he is not interested.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, fuck it. And then I just like how he opens the door, and it's still like quiet, quaint, and very simple. And opens the door, and it's absolute mania with loads of balloons and people on stilts and giant parades and all this stuff. It was
certainly likes the quiet life.
Yeah.
Reynolds.
Yeah. I quite like that. I thought that was really good. Her preparing the mushrooms, especially the second time, that was incredibly sinister. Didn't you get that?
Yes, very passive aggressive.
Yeah, that how she's just like looking at him like with daggers, and he's just like, he knows there's something wrong. But I just love how it's done. It's so simple, but the camera just slowly panning down to her chopping something. What's she chopping? It's mushrooms, and you're like, and she prepares them, puts them in the pot. And it's such a simple scene, but just how it's shot, and the music of it, and just how they're looking at each other, it's just quite tense.
And just obviously the choice of close-ups in that scene is obviously very significant because Reynolds hates butter. He hates too much butter, so you get a massive slap of butter on the pan.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I mean, a slab of butter isn't more scary in this film. Isn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, score, Baz, what are you going for directing?
Yeah, no, I really like the directing in this. I think I'll go. I do like it, but I'm not sure how much I like it. I'm not sure. Because I would give it a in the 9s, but I'm not sure. So because of that hesitance, I'm going to give it an 8.8.
All right, cool. No, I think that's very fair. I think where both films excel is with the acting and the writing for me.
I think There Will Be Blood, excels more than this in the directing. Because there is so much going on in There Will Be Blood. In my opinion, I think there's so much going on in There Will Be Blood.
I think with this though, you kind of can feel the film presence a bit more, possibly. I don't know, of the look of the film in this one, in Phantom Thread. So I'll go the same actually, 8.8. I think that's a pretty spot on, I think. Right, screenplay then. The first 30 minutes are really interesting where the film is quite romantic and there's no tension between Alma and Reynolds. Just that first breakfast scene at the start with his lover, when Alma says in this little montage sequence, whatever you do, do it carefully. And it does feel slightly like a warning that she will fight back if she's mistreated. But the tone is still very romantic, and you're like, this tone is not going to last. You can't have a film with this very wistful, romantic tone for too long. And then when you get to the second breakfast scene with Alma, she's making so much noise that really distracts Reynolds while he's drawing. And in your mind as a viewer, if he's getting this irritated from a bit of noise at breakfast, how do you think he's going to react if one of his dresses isn't right? Not good at all. In fact, each breakfast scene becomes even more like icy with tension, even for Cyril. So the tension building between the characters are incredibly subtly done. I think it's just great. And obviously it doesn't work without the incredible acting as well, but certainly structurally with those breakfast scenes are great. I quite like the scene with Barbara Rose, this quite hysterical middle-aged woman who gets married in one of Woodcock's dresses.
Where she
faints first on the table.
Yeah, that was funny.
Quite funny and brings some humor to the film.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious. She just boom like that, and they have to drag her. I love that. They just pick her up, take her to bed. Yeah, no, that was a good scene. And then when she's like crying about it, Elma, he's like, what the hell, what's your problem? And he's like, she thinks it's disgraceful, like how she's behaving,
Yeah.
And so he kind of is sort of egged up. That kind of gives him the passion to go, do you know what? Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be standing for this shit. And he just goes over to her.
I want my dress back.
Yeah, I want my dress back. Yeah. And I like that. He's like, but she's, she's still wearing it. It's like, well, where is she? She's asleep. Like, she's sleeping in the dress. Well, go in there and get it the fuck off of her. You know what I mean? I like that. Yeah, that was a good scene.
Yeah, PTA loves a well-timed swear word.
Yeah.
Like, we'll get onto this a lot in this podcast. PTA loves insults. He loves really creative insults.
Yeah, I know. There's some great ones in here. Can I go over a few that I like, sort of in no particular order?
Yeah, sure.
But I like when he's really kind of passive aggressive when she tries to bring him a cup of tea while he's working. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And and he was like, it's not the time for tea. Yeah. And she says, okay, I'm going out. And he goes, the tea is going out. The interruption is staying right here with me. And I quite like that. It's a very bitchy sort of. Yeah. You've ruined it. And I like when, what was it? Cyril thinks he might get rid of Elma, and they talk about that because he's like, "Do you want me to talk to her?" And no, it's fine. And then she's like, I just don't want you to break her heart. And then he has a go at her, and I like where she goes, "Don't pick a fight with me. You certainly won't come out alive. I'll go right through you, and it'll be you who ends up on the floor. Understand?" And I thought,
yeah,
that's that's pretty.
Yeah,
cool.
That was great.
Yeah. There are some great, like insults and turns of phrase.
Yeah, I love that moment. It's great acting from Leslie Manville. When she threatens Reynolds at that breakfast scene, because it's established several times that Reynolds is the dominant presence at breakfast. Reynolds tells her to shut up, and she remains very calm, but doesn't even bother looking at Reynolds. Not because she's scared of him, but because she doesn't want her to, use up wasted energy on him. That's what I kind of felt from it. And then says that amazing line.
Yeah, it's an incredible line. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, when like Alma goes in that room to take the green dress off that ridiculous woman, she says she can no longer behave like this and be dressed by the House of Woodcock. And I was like, that was pretty badass at moment.
Yeah, that was incredible.
In this very romantic 50s style, of course. And then in the next scenes, a lot of the conversations between Reynolds and Cyril are all from like Alma's perspective, and it's like Alma has got to get past Cyril and the whole dressmaking business to first truly get to Reynolds fully and live with him how she wants to. And Alma's first idea is to surprise Reynolds by getting everyone out of the house, and she cooks a meal for him. And Cyril advises against this. And as soon as Reynolds walks in, you know he's going to hate it.
Yeah.
And of course he does, and they have an enormous argument mainly about asparagus.
Yeah, I found that funny because she was like, I advise against this, Elma. It's like, fair enough, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to love him in my own way. And then I love the reaction as he comes in, and he's just like, Cyril, immediately asking for a sister. Where is she? I sent her away. Well, where is she? And you can see he's quite annoyed, but he keeps it in. And when he went up the stairs, because she's like, "Oh, I made you a dinner," he's like, "Okay." And he just walks up the steps. I thought he was going to slap the shit out of her, but he just kind of
really?
walks very up the steps, like, "Will you have like what was it, martini?" He's like, "No, thank you," But I love how
I'm just going to have a bath. Thanks.
He at least tries to entertain her with this, but is then just absolutely hates her cooking.
Just has enough.
Yeah, and he just. And I love that. Like, doesn't like her cooking, and then berates her, and then she's like,
"He's like, oh, I just can't carry on with this facade. I've got butter on my fucking asparagus, not oil. Yeah. What are you doing?"
I like when he's kind of losing his shit because.
Are you just doing this to piss me off?
Yeah, because she's like, "Do you think I don't need you?" Like he says to her, and I thought he was going to go like, "Because I need you," but he's like, "Do you think I don't need you?" It's like, "Yeah, well, I don't need you." I love how brutally honest he is. Like, I don't fucking care about you that much. Yeah, I like that because there's one bit where he goes like, "Is this an ambush? Are you sent to ruin my evening and possibly my entire life?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Have you got a gun? Is there a gun on you?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how he's just losing shit with her.
I love that bit because it's like he's falling for her in that moment because it's like he can't get away from her now that the connection between them is too strong. It's like, am I so attracted to you that have you got do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a gun?
Yeah. Are you like threatening? Are you keeping me in this? Yeah, I don't know exactly.
Why am I so attracted to you? Damn it! That kind of thing,
Yeah.
And then Alma comes up with a different plan to poison Reynolds, but then you combine that with the fact that Alma is telling us this story in like flash forwards to a man we've only had like one shot of, and you're like, has she just had enough with this guy and just decided to kill him with the poisonous mushrooms? So the intrigue and character dynamics goes up a big notch. It's the first time we know something that Reynolds does not, so I thought that was kind of a clever moment there.
Yeah, because I was half thinking, that the framing device was she'd murdered him and is explaining her crime. That's not exactly what's happening. It's like basically explaining how she keeps this dysfunctional marriage going. Every time he becomes a jackass and is quite abrasive, and he's just irritated by every little thing, and he's working too hard. She just poisons the fucker, and they get on really, really well, And then after a couple of days, he can be a dick again.
Yeah, and I love just how this film it's very unpredictable. It definitely keeps you guessing, and I love how this film subverts like the Hollywood rom-com ending, but they still end up happily in love at the end. After they're married, things start falling apart again, and Alma goes off on her own to a New Year's Eve party, and it's directed in this classic way of the male lead seeing the light and rushes after Alma to find her, and he does, but there's no loving embrace.
No.
Drags her back home, really angry at Alma. Then their relationship seems to be in tatters. Reynolds thinks he's made a huge mistake marrying this girl, and there's this incredible passive-aggressive scene in the kitchen where Alma cooks this omelette with loads of poisonous mushrooms, with loads of butter, which he hates, like pours the water really loudly, up and down. But I love how long they make you wait for them to say anything, referring back to like the staring contest quip for me.
Oh, yeah.
And Alma openly admits she's poisoning him because that's the only way they can love each other. And I feel like this whole film rides on Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in accepting she's right. In anyone else's hands, it would feel ridiculous, this situation, but it just works with him. Love it. The music is brilliant too in that scene.
But I love that when he clocks on that actually, this would probably save their marriage, because when he was sick the first time, I like that scene because she was very caring. You see this kind of montage for days. She's like consoling him and feeding him and what have you.
Yeah.
She's even talking to the doctor how about, that was just like one of the best times of their marriage. He also has this really trippy scene where he's like, he sees his mother. Do you remember that? Where she's just in the corner of the room in a wedding dress. It's like really quite weird, because he talks about his mother a lot, that he misses her. And then he just like sees her in the middle of the room,
Yeah. Because I think weird is the right word, because it's not creepy. It didn't feel creepy to me. It just, again, as he says himself, it kind of felt weirdly comforting for him, Yeah. It wasn't scary at all.
Yeah, because he even says at the beginning, that the dead are still watching over us. I don't find that creepy at all. I find it very comforting. And he talks about his mother so much. And at first I thought that was like Elmer in a wedding dress on the base of the front of the bed, but then he keeps saying mother and mother, and it is his mother. That was pretty weird.
Again, brilliantly written. There are some great lines in this. We've mentioned a few already. From Reynolds, Woodcock, he says in the argument, I think in the surprise party, the surprise dinner, if you don't wish to share that life, as apparently it's so disagreeable to you in every respect, why don't you just fuck off to back where you came from?
Yeah.
It was quite funny. And one from Alma herself to the doctor, I think, and Cyril, while Reynolds is sick. And she says, I think this is clear. He wants you to fuck off.
Yeah.
Just cool. Really well-placed F words from PTA.
Yeah.
And a great one near the end from Reynolds to Cyril, I think. There is an air of quiet death in this house, and I do not like the way it smells.
Yeah, that is a really damn good line. Yeah.
I think my favourite, though, is... doesn't have a swear word in it, but my favourite is chic. Whoever invented that ought to be spanked in public. I thought that's great.
Yeah. Do you remember when he's talking to Cyril? I think it's that same conversation. And he was like, he's just kind of pouring his heart out about how he's made a mistake marrying her, She's ruining the house, she's turning him inside out emotionally and stuff. And she's right behind him. I find that, it's so funny. She's walking through and like, she's like, oh shit. And you just have that, camera angle where it's him talking all this. And it's like, she's right behind you, you fool. He's got no idea. She just walks in as he's just cussing her out. And then she very quietly says, like, Mrs. Vaughan is satisfied with the dress. And you think he'd be shocked that he's literally been discovered insulting her and regretting to marry her. But he doesn't even turn around and he just goes, nobody gives a tinker's fucking curse. What about Mrs. Vaughan's satisfaction? Like that.
Yeah.
And then she just walks out of the room. And I really like that. I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, great line. Is that your favourite?
Yeah, no, that's a great line. Yeah, I think I would say that's my favourite.
So, Score Bowers, what are you going for screenplay?
Yeah, I think the screenplay is it's pretty awesome actually, and a lot of great lines, a lot of wit. Yeah, I'd probably go and like a 9.
Yeah, I just love how this film kind of keeps you guessing, and again, just really creative swearing by PTA, but the characters are so well drawn.
Yeah, because I usually I can either guess pretty good where a film is going, or I look it up mostly, but I didn't look this one up, and I literally had no bloody idea where the hell any of this was going. So I think if you go in blind, it's not one of those films where you're going to be able to guess the plot points. Like they really do turn a lot of stuff on its head. Yeah, so it is a very unconventional romance movie.
Yeah, it's one of these great films where the characters really drive the narrative in this story and not really plot, to be honest. So I'll go with a 9.1. Yeah,
no, exactly. It's not like some big thing happens. It's just he finds a girl and his personality and hers just don't match. And that is essentially the film. It's just there's no big event that causes a feud between them. They're just not right for each other, really. And that's what the film is. But yeah.
Right, acting then. I think this is probably the world's best film in terms of breakfasts, as we've said, but has the most romantic and sexiest scene of ordering breakfast ever.
Oh, yeah. He is the king of flirting.
Daniel Day-Lewis is like a little schoolboy ordering breakfast to Alma, and she's a waitress at this point at the start of the film. Yeah, he's in full control of the scene. It's just a lovely scene between the two of them, just really innocent, you know. I would like Welsh rabbit with poached egg on top, sausages, bacon.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, whoa. Steady on, dude. That's too much.
Yeah. No, I like that as well, because he's like toast, butter, and jam, but not strawberry. And she's like, we got blackberry, anything else, you know. But it sounds like such a... But the way he does it, it's so playful. It's almost like, I'm a big boy because I'm ordering so much food. Are you impressed? And it's so vaguely sexual. Not even vaguely. It's so overtly sexual. Just being about breakfast. It's like, I don't know. And
he just randomly just takes the pad and takes the notes off.
Yeah.
And just like, I'm keeping this. Can you remember that? I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I quite like that, because he's like, can you remember all this? He's like, yeah, okay, I'm literally keeping the order. I quite like that.
Yeah.
It was it was adorable.
I really like the scene where Reynolds has Alma in his workshop and is deciding what color suits Alma for a dress, which he never asked for, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's all quite romantic, but as soon as like Leslie Manville arrives as Cyril, she's really intrusive towards Alma, just leans into her personal space and tries to work out what perfume Alma smells like.
Yeah.
And the whole dynamic of the scene changes, and Reynolds is none the wiser and just carries on doing her measurements while Cyril helps, and it becomes quite awkward for Alma. It's just a really great scene there.
Yeah, especially when he's like, you've got no breasts, and she's like,
yeah, just random.
Yeah, random.
It's like, what?
She's like, what? Yeah, I'm sorry. And I was like, no, don't be sorry. It's my job to give you breasts or not. It's like a really strange.
It's just very out of the blue.
Yeah.
And I love the little piece of acting from Daniel Day-Lewis on their honeymoon. And he's still getting annoyed by Alma being really loud when she's eating breakfast in the Alps.
Yeah.
But Reynolds is trying not to say anything. He's like, nope, I'm not going to say anything. She's my wife now. I'm trying really hard. You can just get that from his performance.
Yeah, definitely. Even actually just at the beginning where he's having dinner with Cyril, and then he happens to he's just going over like how much he misses his mother. I thought that was really quite heartfelt, and it felt like he could, literally just break down at any moment. But just thinking about it, you could feel the emotion in it. I thought that was just a very heartfelt, sweet scene.
Favorite performance, Boaz? What are you going for?
I'm probably going with Dan the Man. Yeah, I'll go with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah. But the other, I would say it's mainly a 3-piece movie, because it's him and the other two women, Alma and Cyril, and they are phenomenal. They're really, really good.
I think probably Daniel Day-Lewis is the best, but for me, my favorite is Leslie Manville as Cyril. She just has this incredible, like, steely eyes to her.
Yeah.
These very, like, passive-aggressive scenes with Alma, especially.
Oh yeah, very, very passive. Yeah, very passive.
And that obviously that line when she threatens Reynolds.
Yeah, that's an incredible line.
When she says, "Oh, you won't get back up again," it's like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, that was just a damn good line.
She means it.
Yeah,
you believe her in that moment.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Leslie Manville.
Okay.
So acting score, Boaz, what are you going for?
Go like a 9.2.
For acting, for me, I will go a 9.4. I think it's a real tour de force in acting, and I think certainly in very key moments in this film, if the acting is not spot on, it's not especially that scene at the end. It will fall completely flat if Daniel Day-Lewis does not get that right, and he does. And I don't think anyone else could really fill his shoes in that moment specifically. So I'm going to go 9.4. Right, let's add up the scores then for Phantom Thread, which does not involve Billy Zane in a purple onesie.
It does involve a purple dress, I suppose. Many colors of dress. Maybe Billy Zane is one of the girls wearing the dresses. I don't know.
Phantom Thread gets a very, very impressive score of 54.3. But I have a feeling it ain't going to win, even with that score.
Yeah, no, that score is insanely good. But, oh, man, when we get to There Will Be Blood, I've got so much to say about that film. I adore that movie.
Cool. All right then, Boaz, what is your pick for Paul Thomas Anderson films?
I was trying to think of something funny, and I got it.
All right. Something about milkshakes.
I'll say I'm an oil man. I think you'll agree. There will be blood.
Yes.
The Milkshake Man.
Cool. Why did you pick this one?
Why did I pick this? Because it's great. It's a really great film. Yeah. I think it's I don't even remember how the hell I even heard of this film, but I kind of wanted it. I may have seen a trailer. I can't remember exactly, or a review. I think it was a review in Empire magazine a long time ago, and I got it for my birthday, as a birthday gift. And did you see the DVD case of this? It was a piece of crap. I really liked the film, but the DVD was awful. It was made of like cheap cardboard, and it's like, I've got it now. It's smushed. It's misshapen. You shouldn't have like a tiny cardboard case. It was like really crap. But the film, oh man, it was made up for that.
Yeah.
And I've always liked it. I've just always liked it. It always comes to me when people go, what's your favorite film? I always instinctively think of There Will Be Blood.
Really?
Yeah. I genuinely like it that much. I've
really?
When I did film studies in college, everybody brought their movie to analyze. It was only like 4 of us in the class that had took the class, and I picked There Will Be Blood, and we watched the film, and I did this huge bloody presentation on it. Just
really?
All the themes and stuff. Yeah, I used to read loads of articles about it.
Yeah. I'll just sit here and listen to you then. I'll just be a listener.
I am genuinely in absolute adoration for this movie.
Yeah.
So,
do you know a lot of about the time in this history?
So not particularly about like oil barons in the 19th century. I don't know that much, but I think the themes of the film sort of transcend that. I don't think that's what this film is about. Even if you like watch it as a cursory glance, you watch through this film, on the face of it, and if you're to explain it to somebody, it's an oil baron or whatever, up and coming oil producer, who learns about a well in some bloody backwater town, and he goes there, and it's very much to do with the oil business. And he meets a priest there, and he just doesn't like him, and it's their kind of feud. If you kind of explain it like that, that is sort of what the film is, but that's not what it is at all. There are like heavier themes, I think, there that you don't really need to know about the time period or what they're doing. I think there are themes about family, religion, spirituality, capitalism, greed,
capitalism is
revenge. Capitalism is a very strong thing. I also think religion is a huge one as well, because it is essentially these two men who exemplify these worldviews, and they're at each other's throats. Daniel Plainview is capitalism. He is capitalism incarnate, and Eli is kind of like this shifty preacher, and he's like a stand-in for religion. And I find that there are themes in this film, like almost like archetypes. It is kind of a story of meaning, sort of hidden behind that. It's like when we were talking, because this came out about the same time as another film we've done,
2007, I think.
Yeah, but another film we did on the Coen Brothers film, No Country for Old Men. No Country for Old Men. Yeah. So this came around about the same time of No Country for Old Men, and I remember it being compared quite frequently, quite consistently with No Country for Old Men. Like, the time period is different. Even what the film is about is, like, they couldn't be further, from that. But the fact that they're in, like, a sort of Western setting in America, and the fact that, they're amazingly directed and written, but the fact that they do feel like themes as well. So it's like they were Western set, yet they do feel like this is a film that is beyond what it's talking about. Like when we were talking about No Country for Old Men, we were trying to get meaning of maybe it was to do with death and the inevitability of passing and stuff like that and growing old. But it does seem to be like a higher theme that is disguised as a smaller movie. This is very much in that same vein.
Yeah, I think both films certainly like look and feel like a Western, but they're not really typical Westerns.
They're not really
all,
Westerns. Yeah. I think it's the fact that it's in the West, it's in the but it's also the way it's shot and the way it sort of feels. It does feel like a neo-Western in look and feeling, but not in actual content, not what it actually is. But it does have that vibe of a Western.
So what happens in There Will Be Blood?
So, as I said, if I were to just explain the film simply, it doesn't really get to the heart of what it's really about. But if I were to explain it simply, it's about Daniel Plainview, played by Daniel Day-Lewis. It's essentially a rise and fall story, as well as like a confrontation between two gigantic men. So Daniel Plainview is an oil man, and he hears from this...
I am an oil man.
I am an oil man. I'm sure
that's one thing
agree.
I love about this film is I love doing the voice. Carry on.
I love, he's got the greatest
voice. I drink your milkshake.
I drink it up. Yeah. I absolutely love doing impressions of his character. He's got the most badass, great accent. Like I think it's one of my favorite, Daniel Day-Lewis accents.
I am the third revelation, Eli. I am the third revelation.
Yeah, renovation. But so if I were to explain it, it's like Daniel Day-Lewis plays Daniel Plainview. He's a kind of rag to riches oil tycoon. He came up from nothing. He now produces loads of oil. He gets a tip that there's a tiny village in the middle of nowhere that has oil under the property, So he makes a deal with this guy, Paul, gives him some money to learn of this place's location, goes there. And Paul's twin brother is...
played by Paul Dano,
Yeah, they're both played by Paul Dano. He also lives there, and he basically sees through Daniel Plainview's facade that he's just going to buy the land because he likes to hunt quail, because he doesn't want to pay these guys, the ridiculous amount that it's actually worth. But it kind of annoys him that this guy can beat him at his own game. Like, he knows there's oil down there as well, Eli. So he tries to get him to pay him at $5,000. So most of the film is him trying to, buy the land and get oil from this place, and him essentially constantly butting heads with the local priest. That would be the very simple view of what the film's about. But a lot happens, really, so I can't... you can't really condense it like that. Like you've got, his son and his son's deafening and his long lost brother and all this other shit that goes on.
Yeah, my favorite aspect of the film is the relationship between HW and Plainview. Not so much Paul Dano's character. I mean, it's really great, but that's the one that really is thought-provoking to me.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, because as I was saying, the theme of family and, that's ever present in their relationship. And I think especially their relationship before he's deaf is incredibly heartwarming and sweet, and he really does care for him. And then even afterwards, it's like his deafening really does affect their relationship and the ability for Daniel to even cope with him or even sort of connect with him,
Yeah. Let's get straight into directing then. I love how the opening scenes do so much storytelling where nobody says a word for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
We follow like Daniel Plainview as like a silver miner, then discovers oil, then has a crew around him that literally has bucket loads of oil they get out of the ground.
You're even skipping stuff there because when he first finds silver, he breaks his leg. He breaks
Yeah.
his leg finding silver
Yeah.
and literally drags his ass miles, to sell the silver.
Yeah.
I remember I watched a review by Quentin Tarantino, his review of this film. And as far as he was concerned, because Daniel Plainview in the first 15 minutes, it shows the hell he's been through to get this rich.
Yeah.
And as far as Quentin Tarantino's said, he said you could make an entire movie about how he dragged his ass several miles to town. Like, literally, he can't even walk. He is pulling himself along to get money. And he said, like, to be honest, you can excuse everything he does after that. He can be a complete lunatic. He could kill a man. He is suffered,
Yeah. But I think the really interesting thing for me about that scene is that you really establish what's going on in who this guy is the fact that, he breaks his leg, but what's the first thing he does? He gets the silver and puts it in his pocket. He doesn't look after his leg, doesn't see how, you see how messed up his leg is. First thing he does, gets the silver, puts it in his pocket.
His leg is fucked. He goes straight down into the mine. Again, he cannot walk, gets the silver in his pocket and drags his ass there to sell it.
Yeah.
Even when they're tending to his wound on his foot, he's making sure that silver gets sold. And and then I even loved like the next scene where he goes into the oil business, just him and a couple of guys. Just like how much detail is in that. They've got the actual derrick. It's real. It's a real thing that they've constructed. They are really digging through a giant hole. This all looks very real and earthy and practical. And one of his friends has a baby. He's cradling a baby and kissing. So, that's his friend's baby. Like this thing... Again, no talking. This is kind of like the beginning of Up, where it's just doing all visually. So he comes from nothing. He got rich on silver. He built an oil derrick with some friends. His friend has a baby. His friend dies a horrible death right in front of his eyes. And then he takes on that baby, and becomes rich from the oil and stuff. And now you have the present day and,
What's interesting about that opening scene as well is the music. It's like it's really ominous with these strings. It's like straight out of a horror film. And then like the music stops as soon as one of the men gets killed by their equipment falling on him. And like Plainview has to look after the dead guy's baby. But earlier there's a shot on the guy holding the baby, and he kind of comes over to Plainview and points at something to help him with the design of one of his drawings. Not particularly very Pacific in that way, but he pays no attention to the baby at all, So, right from the start, Plainview has no caring instincts, really. But when a bit of oil does land on the camera lens, it does spoil the scene a bit for me. I just really fucking hate that, because it just takes me out straight away, and it's like,
really?
Stop it. I have said this before, but
breaking the fourth wall.
It just pisses me off.
No, I didn't mind it. I do like when the prod goes straight through the ground and they pull it up, and he does that where he just slides his hand down it and then raises it like yes, like he's got an oil covered hand. It's almost,
that was great. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's just beautiful.
Great camera angle.
Great camera angle. Great music, great scene, and just the acting of it is just like, fuck yeah, we got oil. And that even the guy baptizes the baby in oil.
Yeah.
Young HW, he kind of gives him a little baptism of oil. And I thought it was kind of adorable because where you're saying he doesn't have paternal instincts, because as soon as the guy dies, he's got to look after this baby. And he's still covered in oil, still looking like a rugged man. And he's drinking some whiskey, and he's just looking at this baby who's crying, and he's like, "What the?" You can even see it in his eyes. What the hell do I do with you?
Yeah.
And he pours whiskey on the bottle and just gives the bottle doused in whiskey to the baby. It's like he's got no idea what the hell he's doing. You gave whiskey to a toddler. That's crazy. Yeah. But he's got no idea what the hell he's doing. And then it goes straight into his oil selling business, and I just think that's an incredible opening for him.
Yeah,
you get everything you need to know about this character.
Yeah, definitely. Even when he goes to the place where he's like getting the check for the silver, he's just on the floor.
Yeah,
he doesn't go to like a trying to get his leg sorted out first. Nope, I'm getting my money for the silver first. Fuck my leg.
I'm getting my check.
Away.
Yeah.
There's a really nice, really amazing quiet shot near the beginning where we see Paul Dano's character who plays twins in this. You know, the shot starts on him talking to Plainview. Then as he walks towards him, the camera tracks around him and they're talking, and the camera slowly pushes in, and Dano is in silhouette covering like the right side of the frame, and then Dano asks to sit down. Then there's another character like at the table sat next to Plainview, Hamilton, played by Kieran Hines, and you're like, oh, he's talking to two people. And it's just a technically really well done shot, and so simple to like introduce a new character just to make it that much more intimidating for Paul Dano's character. I just thought that was really clever, but yet so simple. Again, like a really long push in that PTA loves, and it really works. And then like a similar thing kind of happens just with cutting this time, when Mary is playing and running around the long table in Little Boston, and Plainview catches her and says, does your father still hit you? And she shakes her head. Plainview says, he better not, and I'll take care of you. No more hitting. Then cut to the reverse angle and you see her father right there across the table.
Yeah.
And it's like Plainview does not care who anybody is.
No, he doesn't give a fuck. Yeah, I really do love that shot, because you think you don't even see him. It's just him and the daughter. And then I do love that. Just cut and like, he's the guy's right there. He doesn't care. He knows, It's kind of like Plainview. I think you can even say about his character, like what is said about John Wick. Like, he's a man of determination and sheer fucking will. Yeah. Like, whatever the hell he wants, or he just tells you how it is. He doesn't give a shit. He'll do it his way.
There's another shock moment that happens out of the blue. Again, no suspense building, really, where the big drill bit falls down the shaft in Little Boston and just takes out the guy at the bottom like he was just a toothpick. That was like, whoa, that was bad. And and as soon as he's out of frame, the film cuts to another shot, and it's literally like a split-second shot of a guy getting crushed, which made me gasp out loud. I was like, shit, he ain't getting up.
It was pretty full on. There's so many shots that I really really do like. Him going hunting in Little Boston with his son. It's such a long take of them just going around shooting, but that just looks visually appealing. Even this like barren wasteland, whenever they just go around it just looks quite nice how he shoots him.
I feel like PTA uses a lot of like long lenses to capture these vast landscapes, to kind of like trap these characters in the landscape, because there's a lot of scenes where like characters are just walking like forward and up in the shot, but then like they're not getting anywhere. Because the lens is so long, do you know what I mean? There's several scenes like that, like they just can't escape this land.
It's huge. I like stuff like that with where he goes to pick up HW after he's been sent back from boarding school, and he literally like walks up to the car that drops him off, but it's like it just does it that he walks away so far and then has this conversation with his with HW and brings him closer to the camera. I don't know why I like that. It's just like setting up the scene, but having them, instead of cutting and tracking them and all that stuff, just have this long take of just the camera being stationary over like a great expanse. Like, he walks over there to walk all the way down over there. But yeah, you do get this feeling, they're just kind of trapped in this empty, trapped in an infinite empty land. Yeah.
You got a favorite shot then?
Yeah, I'm gonna name a couple of shots that I quite like, sure. Just randomly. So the Derek exploding, holy shit! Yeah, that whole scene is phenomenal. And in my head, it's like the pièce de résistance of just how it's done, how it's composed. The sound design of it, just everything. It's just incredible.
And the music as well is amazing.
The music is
really
insane.
Aggressive score.
Yeah.
When that happens.
It's kind of the same as it kind of starts the same way as like the starting track of this whole, all these strings, and it just sounds like, man, there's so much going on. It sounds like a swarm of locusts or whatever. But then it just gets more. It gets more and more and more as all this builds up. It builds up with more instruments and more. You're like, holy shit, this is like
Yeah.
just turned into a full blown, performance
Salt
piece.
of sound.
Well, yeah, you're just getting assaulted by sound while basically the world is on fire,
Yeah, literally.
It is, yeah. It's just amazing. And I just love how that starts, because it starts with like just this ominous silence, and it just pushes in. They're digging at the well, just digging, and they drill. And then all of a sudden the bloody thing shakes like hell, and the guy's like, oh my God, and it just bang! Just blows the damn roof off. And HW goes flying, and it does that thing where, you hear buzzing, like from his point of view. And then the shot that I really like, how it just introduces all this carnage, is one of the guys, a shot face on of him, just one of the workers, running for the derrick. And then it goes from behind him and literally bang, because he runs for quite some time. So you think, you've got to, if this was all real, you've got to get this in one shot. Because he's running for some time, and then the derrick just, like, all of this oil is shooting out. It's fucking obliterated the thing. That is just incredible. And when it goes on fire as well, that's just amazing.
I love the lens flaring at night, like really capturing the lens flare on the edges of the frame, and it feels like the film is going to ignite at any time.
Yeah, basically, yeah, like it's just going to burn a hole through the screen.
You can really feel the heat.
Yeah. I just love that whole scene. I think it's phenomenal. And then say even small things like the scene afterwards where Paul Sunday is being again quite. He doesn't pick his moments very well, because he goes to demand the $5,000 like straight after this explosion. It's like Daniel is in no fucking mood to talk about money right now. But I love how he's walking, and the spillage of all the oil from the other night with the explosion, and he's walking down, and you see like the oil slide, just loads of oil, and just how it reflects the sky. It looks like a giant mirror that he just walks down, and you just got this mirror of the sky, like reflected in this oil slide. It's simple stuff like that where you're like, man, that is composed really nice. That just looks really nice. And then, of course, Paul gets his absolute ass handed to him, which is very satisfying.
Have some mud for lunch, Eli.
Yeah.
My favorite shot. There's a great shot after he kills the guy who pretended to be his brother. Plainview has a pickaxe and is marking out this guy's grave, and the camera like tracks the scene in the dirt with the body in line with it. And when the axe gets to his head, the dead guy's eyes are literally directly looking into the camera, it felt like, with his tongue out. And it's quite a creepy shot. The acting from Daniel Day-Lewis as well is incredible, as he's confronting this guy with a gun in his face before he kills him. His eye is like wide open, but his right eye is like partially in shadow, so it kind of makes Daniel Day-Lewis even scarier in that moment. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, it was genuinely quite creepy. And then also, like, after he's like, when he grabs his head and shoots him, and he's like, and he's struggling, and he just shoots him in the head. But then it's not even one of these clean shots in the head, because he's still alive and dying. So, like, he's somehow shot him through the brain, but he's still alive and slowly dying. Yeah. And then you have this shot upwards of just Daniel Plainview watching him die. You're watching him watch him die. Just a shot on Daniel Day-Lewis's face of like this anger and sort of satisfaction as he watches this man die. It's a really dark scene. There's so many great scenes, man. It's just so rewatching it, there was actually one shot that I never noticed on a previous watching, and I suppose when you say my fetish for transitions, basically transitions, not don't cut that. Yeah. Don't have that cut off badly, But what was it? Where he's with his brother, or his quote unquote brother, on the beach, and then he's knowing something's wrong, and how he goes into the sea, and there's this bit where he's just looking at him from the sea to the beach, and you got the camera on Daniel as he's just looking at him. And then this wave goes over Daniel, just as he's watching him. He's just staring at it. He doesn't see this wave come up behind him. And as it goes over, then it just cuts straight. It like transitions. It cuts straight to Daniel again, looking at him in like a tavern. Just again, like basically the same shot, but he's on land now. I just love how that kind of went together, where it was just like, and then he's in somewhere else, but still like, I don't trust this guy, you know.
No,
I thought that was done really quite nice. It was almost a seamless move from the sea to a bar.
Yeah, definitely.
I quite like that. Yeah.
So directing score for me for There Will Be Blood with a bit of milkshake.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 9.1, I think. I think this film is certainly masterfully directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, one of his strongest films he's made. But again, I think where this film excels is in the writing and the acting. I think the acting is and the writing both really are exceptional. They really are, and both these films have such great rewatch value. And I just feel like you can get more and more out of these films the more you watch them. There's always something new to get out of them.
Yeah, I'll give you some examples of things that I've picked up
on
my rewatches of this film particularly that I thought were great. So actually, it's mainly in the last scene, but you know there are plenty that are darted throughout. But one thing that I quite like is when he's in the bowling alley and Eli wakes him up. Yeah, I just thought the kind of irony of the fact that he's rich now. He's very, very rich. He's a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Yet he dresses like he looks like he's bloody homeless. He's got a like look at how he looks. He looks scruffy. He looks homeless.
An old man.
And have you noticed he's actually collapsed and drunk in the gutter lane of the bowling alley? So it's so funny, the irony that if you watch that scene, that he went from nothing and now he's alone and drunk in a gutter. Like, so all of that was for nothing. You know?
And Eli is so smartly dressed. He's got a new shiny cross, really smart. Yet he has no money.
He has no money. He's poor. Everything's shit with him. Yet he looks like he's living the life. And Daniel,
but he looks like money, but he ain't got none.
No, and Daniel looks poor. He looks like a bum.
Yeah. So, score, Bowers, what are you going for directing?
Oh, my score. Yeah. Now, I'm going to go pretty damn high because I just, even with direction, I think rewatching this film, even just visually, I think it's a very pretty movie. It's a beautiful movie. And I can rewatch it just again and again. I get quite a kick out of it. But yeah, I'll get maybe even a 9.7. Actually, I'll go pretty damn high.
Okay. Screenplay then. I really enjoyed the constant battles Daniel Plainview and Eli Sunday have to gain power in Little Boston. You know, there's a scene where Eli asks to bless the well before they turn the drill on, and Plainview's like, "Sure, go ahead." But Plainview blesses the well himself with his son and Mary, the young lady from the town. You know, using the family values story and saying this is for the children, etc. You know, but which deep down is a complete lie. When Plainview blesses the well, everyone walks off, and Eli is just standing there. He's standing still and puts his head down while everyone's just leaving, you know, to get refreshments. And it's like the first blow goes to Daniel Plainview, and you know, it's like, well, how is Eli going to react from this? What's he going to do?
I love that line because, like, when he's talking to Daniel about blessing the well, he says, "Let me bless the well." He says, "First, you will say," like he's demanding something from Daniel. I think Daniel can't stand him because, ironically, he's very much like him. I do find that the kind of irony about the character. It's like he doesn't like anybody, and he's having this like struggle to find somebody that he likes or some sort of family. And I think the fact is, like,
Eli?
Daniel. Daniel is always struggling to find somebody to connect to. And I think, you know, he did have some sort of connection with his son, or, you know, quote unquote son, that he was trying to shape him into a guy like him. And he clocks on that his brother is not his brother because he's not very much like he is. Because you remember that speech, he's telling him, he's like, I don't like anybody. Like he literally drops his guard because he pretends to be a family man. He pretends to care about the community, but he just opens up to him and says, I hate most people. I just don't like anybody. And he goes, you know, do you get envious? You know, do you get angry? And he's like, no. And he's like, well, if it's in you, it's in me. Yeah, if it's in me, it's in you. But he kind of works out that he's not his brother, I think, because he's nothing like him. He's not a vengeful, egotistical man. Whereas
Yeah.
Eli is very egotistical. Eli is also very petty. They do constantly butt heads. I think they're very much like the same person, but just he's an oil man and the other guy's religious.
I feel like Eli is very disillusioned, though.
He's not as strong as Daniel, and I think he takes a different route. Daniel is a tough man, and Daniel is a physical man, and Daniel is a strong man. But where Eli has to sort of, he goes, under that by he's good with words, he's good at
throwing ghosts out of doors.
Yeah, throwing ghosts out of women. Do you know what I mean? He's good at like making a big. Do you know what I mean? With his spirituality and his pomp and stuff like that. That's how he sort of tries to influence the world and tries to do what he does. But I think in a very real sense about what they both want to accomplish, they both want to be insanely
top
rich
dog
and
in
have
Boston.
They want to be the top dog. They want to have money and power. They're both very influential. They're both incredibly petty. They both just want to get one over on each other. I just don't. I think they're very much like each other, and I think the irony of this film, because even on rewatches and stuff, what I've got on the meaning of this film is like Daniel Plainview is a strange character because he hates this fucking guy, and there's no, obviously he's a weasel. Paul is a weasel. He's so unlikable, but he doesn't like this guy. But I do think they are very similar, and actually, if I think they sat down and talked, maybe they could get on. And even at the end, where it's like he says to him in the gutter. He goes, Daniel, my brother by marriage. But I think they really are very, very similar people.
Yeah.
But I think that's why they don't get along. It's kind of the horrible irony of Daniel is he doesn't like anybody who isn't like him. But if he finds somebody like him, they're so competitive and so in his face, because that's what he's like, that he can't stand that either. I think he's kind of destined to be sort of alone.
I feel like Daniel Plainview has worked out Eli from the start, pretty much. Like he's pretty untouchable from Plainview's point of view. The only way Eli can really hurt him is through talk about his son. That's it. Other than that, even with that sermon scene, I just still feel like Daniel Plainview is in control in that scene, not Eli. I'll get into that in acting, but that's certainly a really interesting scene. But I find the failed relationship between Plainview and HW interesting when the drill hits an air pocket, and started off with this like brilliant long push in from PTA going right in to the guy's glove. Then you see like the rope shake, and then the whole well blows up, and HW gets thrown backwards and loses his hearing. Hamilton and Plainview save him, and Plainview does take him back to his little room. But he says to him, you're safe now, stay here. And Plainview helps a bit. In cutting like the ropes off the well tower. But I'm like, you don't have to do that. Let your men do this very dangerous work and be by the side of your son who's in pain. A lot of pain, but no, he's celebrating with Hamilton. Hamilton just asks, "Is HW okay?" And Plainview simply says, "No, he isn't," and just stands there looking at the fire. But then, still in his oily clothes, he does try and comfort HW. And at this point, you do start to question where his loyalties really lie. Like, is it the oil or is it HW? Then the film stealthily tells you that he does care for HW because he tries to fix his hearing by trying to send for a doctor, and he sends him off to a school to help him with his communication. But it still feels like he's doing this so he can help sell his services better. I just feel there's always a sense that this relationship is false. But there's always that question, even right at the end, does he love HW or not,
Yeah. I think, what was it? I don't even think Daniel Plainview knows if he really loves him. It's one of these things, I think he, I don't fully buy where he was like, I just needed you to sell, my business, and I just needed a handsome, an adorable face, and he kind of berates him. But I have a feeling with Daniel, he likes to be heard. He likes people to listen to him. He likes people to obey him. He likes people to just be submissive and do what he says and do it exactly how he says. And I think he's kind of rearing HW to be sort of like a perfect a student, for basically his demands and what he wants to shape him into. And I think when he kind of loses his hearing, it's almost like Daniel has lost a power over him. It's like, I think Daniel is really in love with himself. Daniel is in love with himself. And Daniel loves people to know how amazing he is. He loves to talk to people.
Yeah.
And this is probably why he just cannot stand Eli. Like, one, he can't. So with Eli, he can't get one over on Eli. He can't convince Eli to shut the fuck up and do what he wants to do. Yeah. And another thing, Eli is also going counter to what Daniel does. So Daniel tries to get everybody to love him. He tries to get everybody to obey him. And then you see the first time he really takes notice at what Paul can do, because the first time he meets him, and he has this huge argument with him because he's not, he's talking about he wants $5,000 for the thing, and he's not taking his offer for Quayle. He wasn't like tricked for that. And he doesn't like him there. And then you see another thing where Eli is trying to convert members of his drilling company to his religion. And you can see him just look at him. Just like, revelation. What the fuck is this guy doing? What is this guy doing? Like, he's basically taking power away from Daniel. He's basically taking the hearts and minds of people that, Daniel, he wants to control,
What is the third revelation anyway?
I think it's just a made up thing for this thing. I suppose...
Oh, okay.
I suppose you just say like the first revelation might be like the Old Testament. Maybe the second one is the New Testament.
Oh, okay.
And then his is like a third, opening to that, a completion of that that series. Do you know what I mean? I think
he's now a prophet for God.
Yeah, he's a prophet for God. So he's like an addition to Moses gave the first one, Jesus gave the second one, Paul's given the third one. He's very up himself.
Yes. Full of ghosts to throw out the window.
I think another reason Daniel might not like him is because, unlike Daniel, Eli is kind of a hypocrite. Like, I think, Daniel at least is being damn honest. He's like, I'm actually doing this. I'm actually helping people to get them to love me and to get money. And you are just selling nonsense. You are just lying. You're pretending you're better than me, but you're probably the same.
Yeah, that's what I get in that final scene, definitely.
And I think he essentially admits it, because for Eli to just say, because he wants money that badly, that, God doesn't exist, and he's shouting it out, I am a false prophet, God's a superstition. You think he's proved his point there. You're a piece of shit. You're just like me. You only care about money. You don't believe in all this nonsense.
Yeah, I find the final scene on Plainview's own private bowling alley quite fascinating. Yes, there are amazing lines and incredible acting, but the writing of the scene is incredible too. Because before, Eli thought he humiliated Plainview during that sermon in Little Boston, but failed. Because Plainview was being true to himself. The third revelation had no influence on him and his beliefs. Only talk about his son could hurt him. But now Eli is seeking help from Plainview in his house on his turf. So Plainview tricks him by agreeing to drill in the Bandy Tract if he shouts out that he's a false prophet. I am a false prophet, and all that stuff. Then all of a sudden, as calm as you like, he just says, these areas have been drilled. Then what happens is quite funny when Plainview is literally lobbing bowling pins at him. Because Plainview is not pretending to be someone he's not, like Eli is. Eli is dressed all smart and has a new shiny cross, yet he has no money because of the 1929 crash. Plainview is brutally honest, smart man. He's a brutally honest, smart man. An absolute bastard, but smart and true to himself. That's why it's kind of funny, and you're kind of with him in the end, but at the same time you do feel sorry for him because of the immense growth in capitalism that has made him become this way.
Well, he's alienated everybody that could have ever formed an attachment to him, and sadly even HW, his son. And again, he throws him away just because he wants to drill on his own, and it's not like, oh, I can feel good for you or anything. It's just, you're my competitor. Get the hell out of here,
And when the film does jump 20 years, Daniel Plainview has achieved what he wanted. This is technically a success story for Daniel Plainview, even though he's a horrible character. He's got his big house. He's cut off from the world and people. That is what he wanted. So when HW comes to see him saying he's going to start his own business in Mexico, to Plainview, he feels like he's been completely betrayed by him and says like the truth to him that he's an orphan and says, "You're killing my image of you as my son." And says later, "I took you for no other reason than I needed a sweet face to buy land." What he says is very much true. You see that's the case through watching the film. Even after seeing this horrible truth to HW, I feel like there is still love there for HW. The way he keeps repeating, "You're just a bastard from a basket. Bastard from a basket." He is very emotional when he's shouting that. Then we get like a flashback in Little Boston of them messing about, Plainview playing with his son almost. So even at the end, the question is still there. Was there love for HW or not,
Yeah.
Was he just using him to sell to buy land, or was there genuine love there? That question is still there at the end, which I quite like.
Yeah.
Some phenomenal lines in this film. "Listen, Paul. If I travel all the way up there and find that you've been lying to me, I'm going to find you. I'm going to take more than my money back. Is that all right with you?"
Yeah. I do like that because you get this, because I just I like how Daniel sort of puts himself across to the public and to everybody else as he's this kind of almost fatherly, figure, and he'll get everything sorted, and he's like the voice of God. You listen to him.
He's very polite.
He's very polite, very very polite, very
aggressive but polite.
Yeah, but he says he says what he's going to do. He's very charming and other stuff. And this is the kind of first inkling you get that he is a very vengeful man. Don't fuck him off, because he can he can switch it off, and he will kill you.
Yeah.
He will flat out kill you, and he can drop that charm, and he can bloody murder you if you're getting in the way. And I like how he does that very subtly. Of I'm going to find you, and I'll take more than my money back. And you're like, wow, that's quite intimidating. But then later lines where he's just kind of he's a lot more in your face about it.
"Can everything around here be got?" "Sure."
Yeah.
"Like I said, go east because there's nothing out there." To his rival oil men.
I like the threat scene because he really dials it up a notch. Where he kind of sends HW away to some boarding house because he can't deal with him. That guy wants to buy up the oil.
Telford,
oil.
yeah.
So there's Tilford, and they're offering him $1 million and stuff, and he goes, "Well, we can make you rich overnight." And he's like, "Well, what will I do with myself?" He's like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "I'm asking you, what will I do with myself?" And he's like, "You could take care of your son." And he keeps bringing it up, and you can tell he's really pissing him off. He's like, and I just love the threat of they're just talking, and he just goes, "Do you know what? I'm going to find wherever you're sleeping, wherever you are, and I'm going to come into your room, and I'm going to slit your throat." It's just out of nowhere. Yeah. He's like, "What?" He's like, "You don't tell you're going to slit my throat." And he's like, "You'll see what I do." He's like, you're really believing him. He's going to cut this fucker's throat.
"What are you looking so miserable about? There's a whole ocean of oil under our feet." "I want no one else to succeed. I hate most people. I can't keep doing this on my own with these people." And they just laugh. And of course, "I am the third revelation. I drink your milkshake." Well, I think my favorite one is just a beautifully written insult. It's so fucking funny. Again, in that last scene, Plainview says to Eli, "You're just the afterbirth, Eli. That slivered out of your mother's filth. You should have put you in a glass jar on the mantelpiece."
Where were you, poor Eli, when Paul was suckling on his mother's teat, being nursed by one of Bandy's sows? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just really, really mean. And then I like it at the end. Like, he's like, don't bully me, Daniel. He grabs him and he's like, ah, and he fucking murders him. You know, like, bully you, I'll kill you.
Yeah, it is funny. I think it is intentionally funny, you know.
Yeah.
You got a favourite line then?
I think the most iconic line is probably my favorite of, it's called drainage, Eli. See, if you have a milkshake and I have a milkshake and I have a straw and my straw stretches across the room and starts to drink your milkshake, I drink your milkshake.
Drainage.
Drainage. Yeah, I just love the ending scene. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. The whole damn scene is incredible. Makes the
Yeah.
film for me. I think this
Oh, yeah,
film
yeah.
for me would still be like, you know, maybe an 8 or whatever. You know, through most of the film, the last scene, the whole damn thing makes it a 9, even a 10 for me. I just think the
Yeah.
last scene is the greatest way anybody has ever closed a movie, in my opinion. But, yeah, incredible scene.
Yeah. Everything okay, Mr. Plainview? I'm finished now. Or I'm finished
Yeah,
or something.
I'm finished.
Cut.
And I love that line because to me it's like he's finished handling his business. Like he's finally got his revenge against that sniveling bastard. And he's done what he said he would do, because you know where he's saying like, I told you I'd eat you up. What I found is actually when he's saying that, he's throwing bowling pins. The composition of that shot, the look of that shot is almost identical to where, you know, he was in front of the church congregation.
Yeah,
It's done
yeah.
like that same thing. And where he was being slapped around by Paul. And after his slapping, he shook Paul's hand and he whispered something in his ear. He must have whispered, like, I will eat you, you know, because he's saying, like, told you I would eat you, in the same
Yeah.
composition of shot. Told you I'd eat you up. And do you know another thing? Because I was saying you can get so much from rewatches
Yeah.
and listening to other people. But when Paul is telling him about Bandy's track, do you know what he's eating?
No.
Lamb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that's really funny because, you know, this guy he's you know, a lamb of God and all this shit. And he's even saying, like, I drink the blood of lamb from Bandy's track. And he was talking about how he'll eat him up. I think it just ties in with the symbolism there.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally listening to him talk and sort of symbolically eating him right in front of him.
Yeah. I think if there is a criticism, I think when we get to Henry, the guy who pretends to be Henry Plainview, it does lose a little bit of momentum. Not much at all. You kind of lose the presence of Eli a bit and their battle, but that's just a minor criticism. So I'll go like a 9.7, I think, for screenplay.
Yeah, do you know what? I think I'll go probably the same height, 9.7. I do kind of agree.
Okay.
I do like, you know, the introduction of Henry. I think Henry, even the actor, is pretty good. I don't think he's quite on the same level with, you know, as I said, Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Dano, and I do miss their sparring matches, and it does kind of, you know, I do agree with you there, but I think he is an interesting character to include, and that's a... I also find it interesting, did you, that scene, because I've been thinking about this long and hard, why the hell HW tried to set him on fire? You know, remember when he came...
Well, he looks
when he arrived
through the guy's diary.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of a woman.
Yeah. I think he must have, as he was flicking through stuff, he knew that this wasn't his brother. You know, this wasn't Daniel's brother. And if you think about it, this is... he can't communicate this with Daniel, that this guy is going to... You know, he's betraying him. He's not your brother. And I think his kind of batshit response of trying to burn him alive... I have a feeling he must have got that sort of notion from Daniel. Daniel is a very vengeful man, you know, and he's been raising him his whole life. That is kind of an insane thing to do. I think that gives you insight into Daniel. Like, if someone fucks him over, he is probably going to kill him. So I think his son was probably like, this guy's betraying my dad. I can't communicate with my dad. I'll just kill him, because I guess that's what my dad would do. And that's what he does, you know, when he finds out, he just shoots him.
But for me, like, the acting is equally as good. As the screenplay. It's really
definitely
a masterclass. And of course, Daniel Day-Lewis won an Oscar for this film, and I don't think anyone really came close to taking this Oscar away from him in this film. Yeah, I love the first conversation Daniel Day-Lewis has with Eli, Paul Dano's character, at the dinner table, and Plainview is trying to like keep the conversation with the weary old Mr. Sunday. Eli keeps interrupting and demanding more money. You know, this is the first time like Daniel Day-Lewis looks quite pissed off at Eli while trying to stay polite to their family. Even the very first scene they have together, where Eli brings some wood for them for their fire when they're hunting for quail. He looks really earnest and overly welcoming. You know, they shake hands and Plainview smiles away. But as soon as Eli leaves, you can see on Daniel Day-Lewis's face that he's twigged this guy already, that he's very religious and could be an obstacle for Plainview, you know. The first sermon scene where Paul Dano as Eli is amazing, where he throws a ghost out of the door. It's quite something to watch. He starts off being like incredibly calm, like we've seen before. Then his performance gets bigger and bigger and bigger. By the time he gets to the door, it does become funny for me. It's just
yeah.
But I thought
it was
intentional.
Hilarious.
It really is intentional.
Yeah, I think it was intentional as well. I think it's going just how sort of over the top and absurd his sort of, ministry is, and how he's sort of, trying to get attention. It's like this whole dramatic performance, and it's I think it's so intentionally ridiculous. And I think Daniel knows it's ridiculous, and he cannot believe people are falling for this, that they love him for this craziness. It's like, just doesn't like it.
Then you get this great close-up shot on Daniel Day-Lewis, who's sitting in on the sermon. He's like, well, this is awkward. He looks so uncomfortable, but still trying to look calm. I love both Paul Dano and Daniel Day-Lewis's performance, because I think they're both scary as each other. And I love the scene where Eli walks past a pool of oil and comes to see Daniel Plainview. And before Eli can finish his sentence, Plainview just slaps him and drags him through the mud and literally tries to put mud in his mouth. No way is that scripted. He's like, surprise, Paul, here's your lunch for the day. But Daniel Day-Lewis is really menacing.
But I love Daniel Day-Lewis's reaction, because he is literally dragging him. It's so aggressive and literally like throwing mud. But when Paul tries to push him back, and Daniel just laughs it off. He's like, "Whoa!" like that, and he's like, "Fucking hell, okay." See how this is. Like, he's got some fight in him after all. Yeah. Just the way he acts, that is brilliant.
But Daniel Day-Lewis is really menacing, because as Eli is approaching, Daniel is looking directly at Eli. As he's approaching, and he's standing like deathly still and completely ignoring the people next to him. Then the next scene at the Sunday dinner table, Eli does pretty much the same thing to Abel, his father. He's so calm, calling him stupid. You're a stupid old man. Then all of a sudden he just gets on the table and starts beating on his father, like grabbing his face, and he's all covered in dry mud. Two very similar scenes of aggression, but very different tones for each character.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Eli and Plainview.
Yeah, because I think even like what they emphasize is like Daniel, he has the very physical, very temporal sort of power, very sort of masculine energy. And, he is threatening, he's going to bury him. He's going to kill him, It's very it's very real. It's very physical, material. I am literally going to bury you, with my bare hands. Whereas the same scene with Eli, he invokes God, he's like, God does not defend stupid men. Like, what I mean? He's much weaker, but he has like, the idea of God on his side. Do you know what I mean? Like, God is going to fucking deal with you, Abel. You're so stupid. And, how they kind of deal with it is very sort of different. He's, it is almost like, as I said, Daniel is the very kind of real physical man, whereas Eli is the more spiritual man. And you see how they kind of handle basically the same situations, but just kind of differently. Yeah, very differently. Whereas, as I said, Eli is much weaker, so he needs to kind of rely on threats of hell, whereas Daniel, he can physically beat you to a pulp. You know? He doesn't need to rely on any threat. He can literally kill you.
I absolutely love the scene in the church where Plainview has to be blessed by God to buy up the rest of the land so he can build his pipeline through it.
Well, I was going to say, I love his scene. I love the scene even before that where he's talking to William Bandy, and Bandy's like, God has told me what you must do. You must be, you know, if he wants his track, he needs to be blessed at the Church of the Third Revelation. And you can see the horror on Daniel's face. For the love of God. I love how he's like, I'll pay you $3,000.
Yeah.
And then he's even like,
5,000.
No, you will be blessed. 5,000. It's so funny. He's offering him 5,000. This is all that Eli wanted. Eli wanted 5,000, and he doesn't want to give him 5,000. Yet he's willing to give this old bugger 5,000 so he doesn't have to meet Eli. You know? He hates him that much.
But in the blessing scene, it's the one scene where Daniel Plainview is vulnerable, and it's at like the spiritual mercy, shall we say, of Eli. And you're like, Eli is going to win this particular battle this time. You know, Daniel Day-Lewis begins looking really embarrassed. He doesn't say the words with much conviction. But when he's forced to say, I've abandoned my child, he really goes for it. You know, I've abandoned my child. You know, like maybe he really did care for his adopted son. But what's really interesting later in the scene is Eli slaps him. And it's like Plainview is goading him on to keep slapping him and make Eli's performance even bigger, because it's like only talk about his son can really hurt him. You can say anything else, I don't give a shit. You know, I can take it.
Yeah. As I was saying, like, they're very different characters in the fact of just like, as I said, just actual will and actual strength. Because Daniel, like, when he manhandled Eli before, he beat the hell out of him, you know?
Yeah.
And here is Eli giving it all he has, slapping him, and he is barely even affecting Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel's smiling. I love also, like, that Daniel is going, like, show me the Lord, Eli. There he is, you know? He just doesn't give a fuck. He's like, come on, then, Eli.
Yeah, so you're kind of like laughing with Plainview at Eli's ridiculous performance. Then when people start singing, there's power in the blood, then Plainview says, there's a pipeline. As the next verse. It's actually quite funny. Then when they're all done, like, Eli looks absolutely disgusted, like, and shocked, like, this has not worked. You know, I have lost this battle.
Yeah. Do you know, actually, there was another thing I realized with the script. I'm just going to veer onto it a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
But, like, their names I think are quite funny. So, like, you know, Daniel Plainview, I mean, you know, straight up his name, Plainview. And he even talks about, like, how he's plain speaking, you know, so that kind of reflects his name. But even when he talks to Henry, and he just gets just his utter contempt for mankind and just for everybody that's, like lesser than him, or even like who are like him, where he's just like, I see the worst in people, Henry. I don't need to look past seeing them to get all I need. So he's very, you know, black and white, and he is very plain. He has got a, you know. And then also I like Eli because, what was it? Daniel thinks he's full of shit. You know, he doesn't believe what he's preaching. And his name, like Eli, it's an anagram of lie. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
You know, I just like LIE is in his name.
Yeah.
So Lie is his name. He's a liar, you know. And I kind of like that. I think in my, you know, headcanon, Paul Thomas Anderson picked those names deliberately. He's like, that is what these characters are. This is a liar. This is a guy who is a very sort of straightforward man.
I think the only other scene I liked with Daniel Day-Lewis, certainly in terms of a humor point of view, is when he's in the restaurant and he just puts a napkin on his face and just takes the piss out of Telford, who sat at the table next to him with all his men, being actually quite rude, like talking about Plainview when he's just right there on the next table.
Yeah, he's right next to him.
Then when he comes over to Telford's table, he's so intimidating that something bad could happen. It doesn't, but still, what a performance.
Yeah, you feel it. You feel it definitely could. But yeah, I like him because he goes up there and he's like, look over there. What do you see? You know, that's my son.
That's
he's
my
with
son.
Me, you know. Yeah, that's my son. And he's just like, don't tell me.
Don't tell me how to raise my family.
Yeah, and then I like how he goes like, "You look like
You
a
know what I
fool."
said.
Do you remember that? Where he's like, "You look like a fool, don't you, Tilford?" Like he really emphasizes it. And and then Tilford is like, yeah, like he's stuttering, like, yes, Daniel. And he's like, yes. Like he imitates him. I'm like, yes. I like that. He's just really, he does feel like he could just like snap his neck at that point. He's so pissed off that he keeps it in,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a very funny scene.
So, silly question, favorite performance?
Oh yeah, leaps and bounds, Daniel. Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis. I think this is his baby through and through, and I do love, a lot of the other performances. I like HW. I think as a child actor, he does a pretty good job, and I like Paul Dano. There aren't that many characters who are like forefront of the movie. There are very good like side characters, and they're played competently.
They're all very like on purpose complementary to Daniel Day-Lewis's character.
Yeah, basically, yeah. They're not really. I would say, only those three have any sort of development, and Henry just a little bit more. But everybody else is kind of like the foal-man to Daniel's like bubbling rage, essentially. Just like they're kind of obstacles for him to overcome. And he does so tremendously,
Yeah. Acting score for me, I'm going to go 9.8 for me. I think I'm not sure you can get better acting in this film. I think just 2 point decimals off because the other performances are kind of just there to complement Daniel Plainview. So,
I would say if you're talking about they're basically there to set Daniel Day-Lewis up. Do you know what I mean? It's like you would say the straight man and the actual comic. It's not that they're not both on the same footing. They are setting up Daniel. They are there to basically get the best out of Daniel Day-Lewis, and he goes full on, like almost all the time. Whether it's to be emotional or intimidating or flat out, sad or rage filled. And he's just so good in this film. Like he does act his bloody little heart out, very compelling to just watch him. Without the acting, I still would quite like this film, but I don't think I would like it anywhere near as much. Like it's hypnotic because of Daniel Day-Lewis. He's like, he is the film really. So maybe I'll go with the same with you. I reckon. I'll go 9.8.
So let's add up the scores then for There Will Be Milkshakes. I mean blood. So There Will Be Blood gets a whopping 57.8, which I think is probably the highest score we've ever given a film. But I'm not sure you can beat. There are not many films that can beat this film, I don't think. There Will Be Blood wins this week over Phantom Thread. I would still very much recommend you watch Phantom Thread. It is an excellent, excellent film.
Yeah, true.
Great performances, great script.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree. Because I mean, we've sung its praises, and I don't think you should disregard a film because it lost quote unquote lost the competition. It's an incredibly good movie. Yeah.
So in the next episode in 2 weeks, not next week, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a look at Cyrano, the Peter Dinklage musical, which will be out in cinemas across the world, and we'll be having a look at Joe Wright films, the director of that film. So we'll be picking Joe Wright films. Cool.
All right.
Thank you, Boaz. You have been magnificent in your milkshake work today.
Drainage. Bye. You're turning into Batman there. Drainage.
I'm not sure we'll be able to understand Robert Pattinson's Batman, to be fair. What? Sorry?
I think he's taking it a bit too far and is doing an actual impression of a bat.
Yeah, I would love it if he drinks a milkshake in that film. That would be like, this is
that would be brilliant, yeah. With a giant straw. Literally across Gotham. Get the bat straw, Alfred.
No milkshakes for you, Catwoman. They're all mine.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off.